Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? So we are going to be playing the Universim, and this is kind of the part 2 of the how to get through the medieval age with me on the Universim. So to kind of, give you, a brief overview of last episode. Alright, we basically have established our actual water well. We've got our reservoir built, and we now have a water pit. These are kind of the three fundamental things that you got to have in order for your organization or population to grow. So what we are working on now is going to be the fishing pier, which is kind of the first food building that, in my opinion, most people ought to grab, at least when they're starting right from the beginning, because you need to have access to food. Of course, you don't want to be following too far behind, and you want to make sure that you have also grabbed the engineers as well as the wonderful warehouse. Now, of course, I'm kind of doing this in the most wacky way possible, but we're just going to go ahead and swap that around a little bit. But you want to make sure that you get access to that. Now, arguably, right, at this point, you could, if you want, go down this route, and you could just as easily get better buckets, which gives you, better stuff, right? You could very well do that, but my recommendation is you want to make sure you get shamanism. If you don't get shamanism, that kind of goes, it'll go downhill pretty fast. But most importantly, you want to get primitive cooking, and then you probably at some point want to consider getting to shamanism and then ancient burial. The reason why is because ancient burial becomes crucial in keeping your basically your population from dying of depression, because their loved ones eventually decease, and you surely don't want them littered all over your city, because no one wants to see that. Having that said, of course, as they build houses, my recommendation is to kind of help as they're building, just to kind of slowly but surely give them a helping hand in that, because when they're starting out, it kind of helps to at least get their houses in working condition as soon as possible. So, here we're going to go ahead and kind of give them what they need. And that just kind of makes sure that,
it's getting a bit chilly in
it's,
here.
it's a little sooner rather than later, which is preferable. Of course, like anything, we're probably going to make sure we get to that fishing pier pretty soon. At this point, it's not like a total necessity. As you can tell, all buildings at some point like to decay. So in my experience, it's kind of not a bad idea, at least from the start. You want to make sure that you get this engineers building, because everything tends to want to fall apart on you at some point, and you need engineers to keep everything from falling apart on you. So we'll just go ahead and get that started. So let's see, we need stone. So we're going to go ahead and pick up some stone here real quick. Obviously, because you're God, they are going to get scared, because they've never witnessed floating objects after all. It's kind of not something we see every day, You can't really blame them. Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and kind of.
A little weak, creator.
Okay. Now that's most of the way done, so they can kind of work their way around that. Now, of course, you don't see any pathing going in between here. I'm assuming that they just don't really understand what's going on there, which is fine. Not a big deal. Mind you, of course, that over here, okay, you're going to notice that snow's almost completely rampant right from the start, so they're going to suffer from basically the winter cold a lot sooner. A heck of a lot sooner. So this is kind of like they did the pitfall, right, of basically building a city in this particular area, but the other benefit is, in my opinion anyways, it kind of gives you a secluded mountainous fortification, which keeps you from running into like huge disastrous weather storms. Like it's kind of, well, it's a mountainous area. I mean, it seems like a logical place to kind of settle. But having that said, we're going to go ahead and pick up this, and we're going to put that down there, and that will get our first engineering building built. And of course, let's see how we are doing on this. Of course, we need to keep them up to date. Now, you might notice that in the water, you can see there's like green specks that look a little iffy. They look like jellyfish almost. But obviously when you're looking at it, right? You know, just food for thought, right? Anyway, so back on track here. So basically what we've essentially accomplished at this point though is we've got them kind of on a roll. Looks like all we gotta do now is basically give them some timber, and they should have that fishing pier built. And these are the first two buildings that you're gonna basically get started, at least with, you know, actually, you know, one to repair your buildings and another to provide you with food. No, that's, you know, not to say that you aren't going to at least find yourself in a situation where you're gonna need a warehouse. And frankly, I think anybody to everybody, at least starting out, is gonna find themselves in this situation pretty often. Now, in my experience, right, you can probably put your warehouse in a crucial, critical key point, kind of like this, where they all meet. So in this case, you know, we have supply over here, supply over there. So it means it only seems logical that we put it right here in a critical key point for all types of basically situations, right? So we really don't know exactly what we're going to find ourselves in. So of course, you know, that's growth and development. We've got a lot of that along the way. And again, you know, it's I don't know, it's not a question of whether or not, you know, will your population survive, because they will like live and die kind of as they go. I think that much is inevitable. But ultimately, if you want to keep your civilization growing, you just got to make sure that food, water, and the basic necessities are always held in high regard, everything else second. So houses and stuff of that nature, things that reproduce your population's growth, are always going to be something that you want to keep a really close eye on. And one of the things that you almost immediately find yourself in a problem with is that. So having that said, because of that situation, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just pick one of our older pops pretty much, because again, mind you, a lot of the older pops at some point will die, so I always like to use them instead of the younger ones. Because the younger ones, we have more practicality, we got more use out of them in the long term, so we don't want to get rid of them as soon as we want. But in the case of like engineering, you know, it just makes sense that we get them started doing that a little earlier. Now in the case of getting food, obviously, like I had mentioned before, you know, you're going to slowly but surely decay from food, but 20 food can get you pretty far pretty early on. And seeing as how we don't have a place to put the food, we kind of aren't in any hurry. Now of course, I'm going to go ahead and set this on the priority list. So we're just going to go ahead and see where it is on the priority list right now, which appears to be pretty, it's got to be on that list of prioritization, enough that I'm not terribly worried about it. So we'll allow that to continue and transpire until we have an actual warehouse to store our supply. Of course, you know, like I told you, I'm not in any hurry really with food or anything like that, because it's going to go up and down just based on the day. There's not a whole lot of worry about it, at least not at the moment. Of course, our warehouse being one of our prime, kind of, it's how you can get an organization like this to go in a good direction pretty quick. So go ahead and get this down. Let's go ahead and get rid of this.
The first snow of winter has fallen. I hope you have a nice pair of fuzzy slippers.
Of course, you notice I don't put too much attention in actually getting the pops to mate. Now, the reason why I don't recommend doing that is it's a lot. Like 20 or so in devotion to just getting pops to populate will not really help you. And frankly, I think if anything, you can get more out of just levitating objects around, at least when you're starting out. Now, having that said, Obviously, we've got the warehouse in production. We now have a fishing village, and we have water, and we have a way to transport it, and we're not losing any of it. Now, granted, you know, we do kind of have to pay attention to this stuff down here, because at some point it will become more and more relevant. But needless to say, that was pretty much it for episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you guys will stick around for the next episode, and I'll see you guys then.